Welcome, everybody, to the Unnormalized Podcast. This is your host, Frankie A., and today I'm joined with a really awesome special guest, writer, producer, director, Spencer T. Folmar, and we're going to talk about a really important film that I was able to be privileged enough to see that has a great importance about some important issues that are facing people out there in the community. So welcome, Spencer, to the Unnormalized Podcast.
Thank you, Frankie. Really appreciate being here.
Oh, no problem. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole entertainment thing, a little background about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I was fortunate from a very young age. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in the film industry, loved movies growing up. Grew up in the sticks in rural central Pennsylvania. And to entertain myself, I would make YouTube videos and home videos, and eventually that turned into a job, and now I'm privileged to be working in Hollywood, producing and directing films full-time.
And you're in L.A., correct?
That's right.
All right, cool. So I wanted to get Spencer on the show because he's done some really great films, Warning Shot, Generational Sin, Homebody, and which Generational Sin is on my to-do list to watch this weekend. But as I was saying, I was privileged enough to be invited by one of the actors that I'll be having on the show, Gary Pastore, who said to me, we were talking off the record, and we were just talking about like what I do for a living and getting to know each other because we're both from Jersey. And he said, Frankie, why don't you come down? I'm in this new film called Shooting Heroin, and it correlates with what you do for your 9 to 5. So I went down. The film Shooting Heroin was doing a film tour, and I just so happened to be lucky enough to have it here in New Jersey at the Cranford Theater. And when I tell you guys, it was such an impactful film. The film is about a small town in America that is fighting against the opioid epidemic that's going on. So, Spencer, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the film without giving too much away, and the importance of the film?
Absolutely. So the movie, it is called Shooting Heroin, and it is a narrative feature film inspired by true events, but it is a fictional tale. And it's about a small town community that comes together to fight back against the spread of drugs. And
when I tell you guys, I invited some of my coworkers to come see the film because I thought it was that important for the work that we do. And for the cast, first of all, awesome job. The writing, the directing was phenomenal. Very impactful film. I mean, I left the film, Spencer, with one, it's very deep and very, very heavy content. But I left the film very moved by what you did because of the work that I do, working with people who are facing opioid use disorder, and it really hit home, Spencer. I think you did an awesome job capturing not only the epidemic, but what lengths people have to go in the community to fight back against this addiction. And even more so, which was impactful from the film, afterwards, there was a question and answer period, and people in the community and in the audience were able to talk to you guys about the film and their experiences working in the community with issues like this. So how does a film like this, like you've done a lot of films, but how is this film different from maybe some of the other films that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for coming to the film and inviting your colleagues. That was a real special night we had at Cranford that had so much support from the community, government officials, superintendent of schools. So that was a really special screening in Cranford. I'm really thankful to Gary for hosting it and putting it together.
Yeah.
So this movie, Shooting Heroin, Whenever I make a film, especially a film that I'm directing or writing, I try and tackle an important subject, something that's pressing or relevant or isn't getting enough exposure. And so they're usually kind of heavy, weighty films.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually in the midst of making another movie in Las Vegas on the sex trafficking. And I visited home in Spencer, Pennsylvania about 3 years ago for Christmas. Caught up with some friends from high school and attended a friend's funeral. And it was all connected with the opioid epidemic. And my eyes were really opened to how bad this crisis has become in kind of rural America. When I was growing up in the same town, it wasn't nearly as bad as it is today.
Yeah.
It's quite overwhelming.
And when we were talking in the question and answer kind of segment of the film tour at Cranford, you guys had brought up something that really hit home. And again, it was after the film, so it really solidified, how bad and how rampant this epidemic is. You guys were talking about a situation that happened as you guys were filming, like right around the corner. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that so the people can understand how, it happens all the time, and it's probably happening right now. People are overdosing and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us what happened during the film?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this film, like I said, is a narrative film intentionally to reach a wider audience than documentary. Specifically, people watch narrative feature films more, but it's certainly not sci-fi, and it's very true to real life. While we're filming one of the pivotal scenes in the first act of the movie, it's outside downtown, and it's a small town. I mean, it's a couple thousand population. But while we're filming, we had to pause about an hour and a half for first responders and fire department came out because there's a 24-year-old kid that overdosed and died on using heroin while we're filming this movie about the opioid epidemic. And that just really brought things. This is in the third day of filming, and it just really brought a sense of importance and timing for this film, and just kind of like an awe and reverence that the story that we're telling is vitally important today, especially for all the victims that continue to be added to the numbers. And some of the statistics too. I mean, in Pennsylvania, I'm sure Jersey is similar, but in Pennsylvania, there's 10 Pennsylvanians a day that die from opioids. About 200 Americans a day. There was a big report that came out, I believe, in July of this year that said that more Americans die from opioid overdoses than all car accidents and gun violence combined. These stats are really overwhelming, and for those stats and that death count being so high, I just feel like there's not enough conversation around it.
Absolutely, and what an important conversation that the film kind of brings up. You also, there's a part in the film, and again, I don't want to ruin it because I want people to really go out there if the film is in their area and experience the film and hopefully walk away with the same impact it made, not only in the work that I do, but personally in my own life. Some of the scenes, especially the scenes where the mom is talking to some of the high school students. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was filmed in your actual high school, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's the same high school I went to, and that was Sherilyn Fenn playing Hazel, a mother who had lost two sons in one night in the same needle. That
alone, if that doesn't grab people to come see the film, because while it's a fictional narrative based on like real life events, that's not something that's totally fictional where a mom can lose two sons from the same needle. I see it every day, Spencer. Hear stories like that, and when I saw that part, and it really moved me because of the fact that a lot of people out there, and I love that you give. I'm all about, like, in the work that I do, statistics and how that's 200 people a day. Like, I don't think people grasp the magnitude because they're so engulfed in going through, life in general, that we don't stop to think about issues like this and how they're impacting communities. How was the community? I mean, this was filmed in pretty much like your backyard where you grew up. How was the film received in the community after finishing filming?
Yeah, it was well received. The community in Central Pennsylvania really helped us during production as well. Businesses shut down so that we could film in their establishments. Extras, hundreds of extras, 500 extras in total, that volunteered their time to be part of the film and make it become real. The high school didn't pay for almost any location.
Wow.
And so the community was super supportive and embraced what an important topic this is to tackle. So I really give them credit for not trying to sweep this under the rug, but was ready to embrace it and support us, from politicians down to just local community leaders.
And the film, are you guys still on the film tour with Shooting Heroin?
Yeah. In fact, tonight I'm in Orlando for our next public screening, and then we'll be in New York City in January, and the tour will continue into the new year.
Awesome. And how's the from city to city that this film is touring? The feedback must be phenomenal that you're getting. Now, do you guys do a question and answer after every film tour?
Most screenings we have, this is the 12th public screening, so we're still pretty early on in the tour. But yeah, the feedback has been really passionate. It's not a film that you can be lukewarm about.
Yeah.
And everyone, from people who know nothing at all about what's going on, it's a real eye-opener. And thankfully for those like yourself who do work in the field every day, people have found it accurate. This is something I was really striving to do when I was doing my research and development, is to, as much as possible, paint a realistic picture of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you captured it, I hate to say beautifully because it's not a beautiful subject matter, but you captured it realistically, as and I can attest to that for someone who, like you said, works in the industry, working with people who have a opioid use disorder, and it really encapsulated and depicted to people who may not be familiar with it or who may have experience with it, a picture of the magnitude of it all. And the film is about a community that fights back, literally fights back, and takes it maybe to an extreme. But what I walked away from the film with, that part of it, was Spencer, is we have to, as a total community, like a global community, really strive to do things that hold people accountable for how they've contributed to the epidemic, and hold them responsible, as well as hold ourselves responsible as global citizens in communities across the nation, across the world, that are facing this epidemic, and really kind of put our heads together. And I think your film, Spencer, is a conversational piece, where people can, if they don't have a seat at the table, hopefully after your film it impacts them so much that it urges them to grab a seat at the table, because I think as a community we have to really find resources, education, build awareness, break down stigma around it. Substance abuse is something that I find every day with families and individuals that I work with, that there's so much stigma around it that it holds people back from looking into resources and taking advantage of resources that the communities have out there to help them, manage it. And, I think the Shooting Heroin is a way for people to start, understanding how impactful this is. I mean, I can't strive enough. Like you said, 200 people a day are dying of opioid overdoses. And, there's other addictions around, too, that contribute to it. I just really wanted to take an opportunity, one, to thank you, Spencer, for shedding light on this very, 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 immense kind of epidemic that we're having, and doing it in a way where people can walk away, like I said, a couple of times. I don't know. I have a 17-year-old son, Spencer, and my wife and I attended the viewing, and as soon as we walked out of the theater, I mean, we didn't even get to the lobby, and she turns to me and says, "We have to have a conversation with our son when we go home." That's how impactful it was as parents. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have, sometimes the conversation, Spencer, starts around the dinner table, and we really need to talk to our youth and let them know, some people, Spencer, it takes just one time and they're addicted.
Right.
Beautifully done. And again, I can't thank you enough for contributing to the narrative of the whole thing. So, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. What are the?
Thank you so much, Frankie.
Oh, you got it. What other? I know you're on the film tour now, but Spencer, do you have any other projects that are coming up that we can look forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in development right now and making offers to talent on a World War II epic on a historic figure named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So it's about a group of Germans who saw how evil and wicked racism was and racism, and they came together to overthrow the Nazi regime. And so that's the next film I'm working on, and having meetings in LA in December about that picture.
Very busy guy. Very busy guy. And willingly so. I mean, busy, Spencer, means success in my eyes. So after seeing Shooting Heroin, and I'm eager to see what projects you have coming up, and following your journey in filmmaking. I love when filmmakers like yourself go out there and they make movies and films that really are impactful and have great subject matter and content, because I think, Spencer, well, I don't think, I know that people like yourself are storytellers. You're the people that are the truth tellers in what we, the public who are receiving the project, really need to know and walk away with something. So I love, I'm totally a fan now, and will do my due diligence to make sure that I check out a lot of your films that are already out there. So, thanks again, Spencer, for lending your time. I know you're super busy on the tour. I wish you guys much success with the film. Spencer, before I let you go, can you tell the folks out there, are we going to be able to see how are they going to be able to see the film in their areas? Is it going to be released in most theaters, or how is it going to reach the public?
Yeah, absolutely. So, today in Orlando is our last public screening for 2019, but then in 2020, in January, we're at the Hell's Kitchen Film Festival. We're going to do a film festival tour. Simultaneously, though, we're going to continue doing the concentrated, targeted communities like Cranford, community engagement, inviting government officials and rehab organizations and people who are doing good work in the field to continue to have these community events And we're doing that in a more formalized way in 2020. We are doing an educational kind of tour, connecting with some of the governments. New Jersey are talking to the State Department about how we can team together to make an impact in major cities. And so that's what we're trying to put together in Pennsylvania, in Jersey, West Virginia, some of the states that have been hit the hardest by the opioid epidemic. And have these events with speakers and engagement. Veritas is Latin for truth, and we're looking to, through all the films we do, through our education, through a movie like Shooting Heroin, we look to give people value, vision, and vocation. And these community events that we're having in the new year will really kind of be the first exhibit of that mission for Veritas. And so we're excited to continue screening this. We will have a wide release probably in the spring of 2020 where it'll be in a theater near you, and then we'll have it on cable and home video.
That is awesome. The wider spread of the exposure for the film, the more people will gravitate towards having these conversations and hopefully being part of it, walking away and saying, like, I have to do something. If it's not only, I would say not only impacting them, but maybe somebody in their community. But the way that this epidemic is working is that it's usually somebody either that or in your family or in your community that has been impacted by it. So it's reaching and touching every family and every home in America. So, Spencer, again, thank you for joining me on the Unnormalized podcast. Again, much luck to the film. And everybody, when it hits your town, please go out and see it. Take your friends, take your family, take your kids. It's an important film, Shooting Heroin, that I think everybody needs to go and get educated and be part of the dialogue and the conversation. So, Spencer, again, thanks for joining me. And everybody, this has been the Unnormalized podcast with your host, Frankie A., and writer, producer, director of Shooting Heroin, Spencer T. Folmar.
And stick with me, because after this break, I'm going to have another awesome guest, Garry Pastore, who is a writer, director, actor. You may know him from such works as Sopranos, Carlito's Way, Goodfellas, A Bronx Tale, and he also plays Officer Jerry in Spencer's film, Shooting Heroin, a great dynamic character. So stick with me, guys, because after this break, writer, actor, director, producer, Garry Pastore.
Welcome to the Unnormalized podcast. This is your host, Frankie A., and today I am joined with an awesome guest, somebody that I really admire all his work that he's done. I have Garry Pastore, who's been in some great films, iconic. We're talking about Goodfellas, Sopranos, Carlito's Way, Bronx Tale. He was on Blue Bloods. I mean, you name it, and Gary's probably been in it. So welcome to the show, Garry. I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, bud. Just wanted to, I always like to start off my interviews, Garry, with my guests telling the people a little bit about themselves, because we see a lot about people who are familiar with your work, but we kind of don't get to know the person behind all of that. So just tell us briefly about you're coming up and where you grew up and family life and things like that.
Okay, I'll do the best I can.
Sure.
I was born in Brooklyn. I lived there till I was about probably 12. My parents thought it best to get out of Brooklyn. I was getting into a little bit of trouble with neighborhood boys. And I moved to Staten Island and got more trouble. Around the year in high school, I was playing a lot of rock bands and going there. I did high school production of West Side Story. I wound up cutting my hair and played Tony, and that was it. I was on a roll after that. I started doing extra work, and I did a couple of soap operas. Let's see, probably stopped doing extra work on. I did it for the first couple of years. It was good to get my feet wet in business and see how it worked. But I got very lucky. I started getting upgraded from my extra, getting day player work, which means that you get a speaking part every now and then. And then I stopped doing soaps, and the roles started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now they're getting really big. In Shooting Heroin, you see, it was a pretty large role. So, yeah, I don't know. It's so hard for me to talk about myself. When people say, what have you done? I said, just Google me. I actually made up a business card that says Google on it. I put my name in the thing. Because, it's really difficult. I mean, I don't even know half the stuff I've done. I've done
so much.
35 years.
Yeah.
35 years of work.
Yeah. And commendable work. I mean, how did you, Garry, get into, the whole, because I look at your body of work and I'm like, put myself into your shoes and I'm like, how is it like being, is it surreal to be in some of these big name films that are so iconic out there, especially the whole mobster kind of world in film. I mean, you're in all of them. So, how does it, do you kind of sit back and say, wow, I've had this opportunity to be in some of these big major films. What is that like? What is?
Funny, I think, truth be told, my dad was kind of involved in that world.
Sure.
So from there, I wound up getting, and I have relatives.
Yeah.
Who were made guys.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in that life. So, to me, and my father didn't want me in it. To me, it was a lot easier to portray what I get to go home and I don't go to jail and I don't get killed. So,
yeah.
At least when I do get killed now, I get up after getting killed and I get cleaned up and I go home.
Yeah.
And that's the great part about moving. And as far as the authenticity goes, I know these guys.
Yeah.
I watch them and actors. I know how they eat. I know how they walk. I know how they talk.
Yep.
And guys like Scorsese and all the directors, they want the real deal. They don't want some. I always laugh when they try and cast a gangster from California. That one I've seen one where you got a guy here. I mean, I worked in Pastel's nightclub in Brooklyn for 10 years. That's all I served. I mean, I served Gotti down.
Yeah. Well.
And I could tell you what every one of them drank.
Yeah.
I served Gotti. I served Sammy the Bull. I served all of them at some point.
Yeah.
They drank at my bar. So, again, I got to watch them walk, talk, eat, drink, laugh.
Yep.
I didn't see any of the
yep.
bad shit, thank God. I didn't get to witness any of that. But, once you walk the walk, it's easier.
Yeah, it makes it...
To try and imagine what it's like.
Yeah, it makes it more authentic. I actually grew up, I'm Italian, so I grew up in the Ironbound section of Newark and similar experience. Yeah.
They had their guys over there.
Yeah. So, same thing. I've had like family members and stuff like that in the life too. So that's what makes it so great about your work, is that it comes from an authentic place. And a big reason why I wanted to, like, I reached out to Garry because I reach out to people that I really like to do their work and want to have them on the show. But when Garry and I were talking behind the scenes, he kind of put me onto a film that he's currently in and on a film tour with, and that's Shooting Heroin. And the reason why that it's such an important, and why I really wanted to even more so have Garry on, is because the work that I do for my 9 to 5 really kind of is about what the film is about, and that's the opioid heroin epidemic. I work with guys, Garry, that are opioid use disordered, kind of classified, and it makes it even more kind of a specific demographic that I'm working with. Is these guys are incarcerated because of opioid use disorder, and I kind of see how a simple choice in life, well, not simple, but how one choice in life can alter the whole path of where these guys were destined to go and where they are now, and how it impacts them and the families. So talk to me a little bit about, I went to the premiere. Garry invited me to come to the premiere of Shooting Heroin at the Cranford Theater here in Cranford, New Jersey. And I have to say, Garry, I'm still kind of reeling from the movie and the film and how impactful it was. So talk to people, let them know about what Shooting Heroin is about.
Well, I consider it almost on a documentary style, but that's obviously a live action film, and it's based on a real town in central Pennsylvania that has an overwhelming heroin opioid problem. Jesus, they were losing 10 people a week there.
Yeah.
And in the film, you saw this woman lost her 2 sons within a 12-hour period from the same needle. And an 8th grader, school, died in the bathroom. It's when you start seeing young kids, 8th grade, you know that this is a terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah. And,
the town was overrun, and I played a sheriff. Basically, when I met him, he told me all he did was chase cats up trees.
Mm-hmm.
That was most of his job. There was no crime. He had 300 square miles to explore. Of course, there was domestic incidents, things of that nature, and small-time misdemeanor crimes, but nothing of the scale that the heroin industry had brought to this town. And I think, unfortunately, there's people out there that will they profit off of people's lack of I don't know what the right word is, self-esteem. When you're in a town that's kind of it's a little downtrodden, the people there are great. I met most of the locals when I shot this. I found them to be very, very nice and very sweet. But, every time you think you want to get out there somewhere, people resort to other things. I guess it hides their depression or whatever. It's like drinking.
Yeah.
Except that this is not drinking. This one time and you're done. I was very intrigued. I got the call 2 days before filming was to begin. I know Meatloaf was supposed to play the role I played. He couldn't do it because of a bad back. But I think personally, after the first day of shooting, he might have died because I had to run after that kid on the trike, whatever it was.
Yeah.
The ATV. I did that about 20 times.
Wow.
So I told Spencer, I said, I think Meat Boy might not have made 2 takes. So I'm grateful. Thank you, Meatloaf. It was a great opportunity.
I love Meatloaf, but you know, maybe just because I'm being kind of partisan to my liking your body of work, but I think you played such an awesome part in that movie. You brought, you know, because it's a very heavy topic that, you know, the film is based around, and I think you brought a little bit of like comic relief, if I can say that to that.
No, I wanted to, but it's so much heavy.
Yeah.
You know, and here I am trying to entertain Alan Powell, who just lost his sister, and get him out of his doldrums, take him out. Meanwhile, every bar is like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about his sister. And they kept going, okay, I could go, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm dealing with I'm reeling from all this death, surrounded by it. And I don't know, you know, honestly, you know, in the character, I don't even know how to handle it, because it's not something that, listen, I played NYPD, I played NYPD cops, even, I had my stint as a cop for about 7 years, back in the 80s. And, you know, it's different.
Yeah.
You're used to seeing homicides and shootings and stabbings. You know, in New York City, you know, you deal with almost a homicide a day at some point, especially back in the 80s. It was the Wild West. So, you know, here I am in a totally different law enforcement. And totally, you got to admit, that's a polar opposite of any mob movie I've ever done.
Yeah.
And that in itself is intriguing to me as an actor, to be able to have that kind of broad range. That's why, you know, the role is wonderful to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to show casting directors that just because I have a vowel on the end of my name doesn't mean I always have to cast me as a mobster.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. Unless I'm going to play something really different that I haven't portrayed as a mobster, I don't know going forward. Like, I'm not going to play some street hoodlum in a movie. I'm just not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's got to be something, some substance to it. It's got to be more intriguing for me.
And I totally think that you hit the mark on that with this film, because as you know, the viewer of the film, you're kind of like that lovable, really sincere, genuine, wanna do what's right for the town and the people that are, you know, that you have a connection with, that your character has a connection with in the town, and it showed just a different dynamic of what Garry has to offer outside of, like you said, being just, you know, cast as a mobster kind of role, or like a cop, you know, more of a hard. This was more of a softer side to what you bring to your craft. And totally, as I have to say, as the viewer watching the film, it was very, very nice thing to see, because of the film's depth and how intense it is. I think that without that, I think people would have been left like even more heartbroken, you know what I mean, than if it wasn't played by someone like yourself. And it really touched me. I had brought, I can't say who I work for, but I brought a bunch of my coworkers who do the same thing that I do. And we basically, when we got back to work the next day, we really had to decompress from the film, because not only, guys, was the film intense, but afterwards, because it was a premiere and a film tour, we had the opportunity to be blessed with a question and answer period from Garry and the producers, and we had people in the audience who were social workers and were representing law enforcement and the school district, and people who were in recovery, and people who were impacted with their kids, and it was very emotional to hear how broad and how this epidemic is impacting all kinds of aspects of life and community, and I think that you guys did a great job in hammering home the message. I think, it's one thing to see it in film, but then to hear how this issue is impacting people, and I think the film brings a great opportunity for us to have a conversation, not only with our community members and our leaders, law enforcement, but just within our home with our kids, Gary. I attended with my wife, and immediately we didn't even make it into the lobby, and I have a 17-year-old son, and she turned to me and said, "We have to have a conversation with Matthew when we get home." That's how much the film and what you guys did in the film impacted us as parents. And we have a dialogue with our son all the time, Gary, about things like this, but it just provided us an opportunity to have that more in-depth conversation on how fucked up this is, and how one opportunity to get into all the heroin and opioid, and not just that, just substance abuse in general, with our young kids, how it could just change your whole life in just an instant.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you heard Spencer say that they don't have any narcotics in town, and it takes sometimes an hour for first responders to respond. By that time, they're done.
Yeah.
I mean, the night we were shooting the powerful scene outside, and Adam is against the building, and he's looking at his sister's picture, and it's that pivotal moment where he's crying, and I hold him and I tell him I'm going to help him. We started hearing sirens, a lot of them. And I found out the next day that 3 people overdosed while we were shooting that scene around the corner. So, it's mind-boggling how widespread, and it doesn't differentiate. It doesn't pick the poor. It picks people that are in despair. And that despair seems to be the number one reason. Either it's boredom, either it's despair about the family that they're in, it's despair about something. I have to admit, unfortunately, it preys on the weak. I'm a very strong-minded man, and I'm trying to teach my children to be that way, strong-willed, and not to let current situations get them down, and have to turn to, doing something to get them out of the doldrums that they're in. Hey, listen, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
There's been many a time where I had a bad day, well, I'll go have a drink, and smoke a joint, which I don't find terribly, off-putting. But unfortunately now there's stronger things. And, obviously the opioid crisis. They were prescribing, Percocet and Vicodin to just about anybody that went in.
Yep.
They've been arresting doctors like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now the pharmaceutical companies are going to get sued because of it.
Mm-hmm.
The over-prescription of. I've said when I was in the hospital, I was on morphine for 2 days. Believe me, I needed it because I was in that much pain, but I start to feel that, okay, this is not good kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I made them get rid of the morphine, put me on a strong painkiller, like 800 milligram of
like Tylenol.
Motrin.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Motrin, whatever. And grin and bear it. I mean, I had bone surgery, and I don't know if you know what that's like. It's horrific. It's bone pain, and I can't just, because it's so deep. It's not a topical pain. This is right into your bone. And it's fierce and serious, the amount of pain. And I learned to have to deal with it. I mean, back in the day, they didn't have these kind of drugs, so people dealt with pain.
Yeah.
I learned to deal with it. And I did it for my own benefit, because I could see how easy it is to get it. Hopefully this film makes it all around the world, and it gets the audience that it deserves. I mean, it really does deserve it. It was made to be a wake-up call, and hopefully it does just that.
Yeah.
Even if we save one life, we've done our job.
Exactly, and I have to thank you on behalf of the people that I work with, because this film is going to hopefully reach people and have conversations, so one, we can try to get a handle on this big problem that, you know, I think we're all kind of just communities and programs and agencies that work with substance abuse, and it's tied to mental health, you know, do a better job of understanding how impactful this is, and the message, you know, and I don't want to give the film away because I really want people to see it and get, you know, engrossed in it. But the greater message is that it rests in the hands of not only the parents but community. It's a community issue, and the resolution is going to probably lie in communities, and that's what the film is about, guys. It's about a community fighting back, literally fighting back, and trying to do something about it, and not just resting on their asses and watching their kids and their family members. I think Spencer said it in the question and answer. This is something that it just doesn't start with teenagers. There's kids that are overdosing. There's 60, 70-year-olds who go through surgery, like hip replacement surgery or something like that. They're provided it with a painkiller, an opioid, and get instantly addicted. And at 70 years old, these people are grappling with a major substance abuse disorder on top of some of the geriatric issues that they're dealing with. So it does impact so many people. Garry, you have something to kind of segue. You have a great film that I'm trying to get my hands on, and maybe you can tell people about it. Your film Distress, it won a bunch of festival awards here in Jersey, but it kind of talks about some of the same issues that may lead into something like Shooting Heroin. You know, like talk to the people about what Distress is, and how, you know, how important that film was making it for you.
I almost died from a stress-related illness, and I felt that our society often dictates how we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, one of the things I say in the film is that we create our own stress.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with starts in the morning with your alarm clock.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you hit the snooze button, you're a half an hour late, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that half hour late is going to take you throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's going to get you stuck in rush hour traffic. It's going to make you late for work. The boss is going to be pissed at you. You're going to be on a deadline or something that day, and because you got in late, that's going to get pushed. The whole day wants to be miserable. God forbid it's a rainy Monday. You know, it quadruples.
Yeah, the compound.
It's compounded. So I've learned that instead of sleeping the extra half hour, I set the alarm an hour earlier now.
Mm-hmm.
And this way, if I want to hit the snooze button, I'm still a half hour earlier.
Yeah.
And it works. I've created a new thing. Yeah, I'm getting an hour less sleep, but as they say in science, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do what's good for me. You know, again, the dress for something that had to be made. That we are so reliant on, and I made this film 5 years ago. Actually, I started making it 7 years ago. We had to put it down for a while because we ran out of funding. But then I decided to finish it, and you know, I feel like cell phones, the internet, just modern technology has really put us, as great instruments as they are, it's really set us back.
Yeah.
I think it's the creator of all things stressful in this world. Politics, just everything.
Mm-hmm.
People are so angry nowadays and so divided, and the division takes place because We get it zoomed into your homes now.
Yep.
And if you think free computers and free internet, it was not as stressed out as we are now.
Yeah.
And we basically created it. So we got to try to deal with it. This is why I get to a point where people start talking politics and you can't have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right? If you don't like the president, that's your problem. If you like the president, that's your problem too. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I just want the country to be run right. However, the racism crap, I think a lot of it's fueled. I think a lot of it is nonsensical. Ever since the beginning of time, since the United States was created, they've been trying to separate the North and the South, the black and the white, the rich and the poor, the left and the right. You know, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
If you have a brain and you can actually see through the darkness, you'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Because we are being force-fed stuff that we don't have to deal with as humans, as people. I love everybody. Until you know, it's on my tree.
Yeah.
But I don't get up every day thinking, okay, I'm going to go out and keep the world today. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I go about my day now and I think of what the world has to offer. Am I saddened by it? Of course I am. How can you not be? And it's not even my world anymore. It's my kids' world.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think, for all practical purposes, everybody needs to step up and do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pay it forward. Help out people. Stop being so mean, so angry.
Yeah.
You know, I know what it qualifies, and I'm not going to point fingers, but there is a certain group of people that just seem to want to make the world not a better place, but a worse place.
Mm-hmm.
And they know who they are.
Yep, and it's almost like, Gary, like, that's where I think it touches upon, like, what you said, like, you know, I'm young and old enough to be on both sides of that. I know what life is like before having phones, and, you know, I'm in my 40s, so, like, I grew up with not having all that stuff. But I also saw the development of it, and I have a 17-year-old, and sometimes I have to tell him, you know, you got to disconnect, and stop from being exposed to just so much information that I think that compounds to the stress too. Is it's like information overload, and people just don't know how to process it and lose their shit over it. And that's why we see all, like, school shootings and all that. We didn't have that shit when we were younger, you know.
No, we did not. We did not.
Bullying, you know, why that may be a problem, but I was fucking bullied. We all were, and we kind of, like...
Yeah, and I punched the guy in the face, and that ended the bullying.
Yeah, and we took it...
I hate to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Frown upon me for saying that, but if somebody tried to get under my skin, they regretted it. I hate to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, and...
Because I didn't take that.
Yeah, and
if anything, it stopped the bullying.
Yeah, and I could say, like, when I came home, and because my father's a tough, you know, rough around the edges type of guy, you know, if I came home and I said, listen, Tommy said this, and he would be like, fucking man up and either handle it or stop bitching about it. And, you know, I'm not saying that that's the answer, violence or whatever, but what I'm trying to kind of convey to people is that it's not a new problem. Like, these are not new problems that we are faced with as a society. It's how we are handling it now as this very overly sensitive, very offended type of society that we have now. That you know, it's almost like we're overly sheltering our kids, our society, you know, and it's not fucking helping anything. You know what I mean? It's making matters worse. We're raising a different type of breed of youngsters and young minds that we were. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel here, Gary. You know, it's the same shit that we've been dealing with for centuries and decades, and I think it takes away the focus from what we need to do. And I think I love when you say you don't wake up. People don't normally wake up, or you shouldn't wake up fucking hating the world and being pissed off at the world. You should be waking up and saying, what can I go out there and do to spread the love and the light out there to make this world that's so angry and so divided, and help bring that kind of back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's kindness. Just be a little empathetic for people.
Mm-hmm.
The whole film is about stop bitching, go out and help. And I realized that I conquered my stress by going out and helping people that were less fortunate.
Yeah.
During Sandy, I went out and I filled up my car with paper towels and toilet paper and bottles of water, and I went out and gave it to people along the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
And then one guy started crying on my phone. He said, "You're the only person who's come by."
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so good after that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like I did something for somebody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do I have a violent mean side? Of course I do. I grew up in the streets of Brooklyn with a father who was angry at the world, came back from World War II broken. He you have no idea. You do become a victim of your environment.
Oh yeah.
I used to get smacked around and spanked, but it made me the man who I am.
Yeah.
I believe in helping mankind, and I will never stop till the day I die trying to help people in need out there. And I think if everybody sets the example of doing the exact same thing, we will live in a nicer world.
Oh, absolutely.
That's up to the individuals.
Yeah.
I can only preach.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can do is preach.
Yeah. And it starts with parents, I think, like myself and yourself, that have the conversations with our kids and tell them to go out there and be the best human towards humanity, and at the same time be a strong, independent individual. And unfortunately, not every kid out there, not every person out there has that opportunity. But when, for parents out there that are listening, or whoever, caretakers, when you have people under your belt like that, you have a greater obligation to make sure that you're trying to convey that message to the people that you're caretaking, and make sure that they're going out in the world and they're giving back, and that's 90% of why I do my job, Gary. It's I work in social work, so it definitely isn't fucking for the pay, but what I get back.
But you have the reward. Your reward comes into your heart.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest rewards. To me, it's worth more than money.
Yeah.
Listen, I didn't make any money from this stress, to be honest with you. My concern with that film is that I want 1 million people to see it. Because I think the million that see it will become better people.
Yeah.
I told you, that kid Scott Warren, he saw the film and he said, Gary, he goes, I'm really going to change. He goes, I'm going to go to rehab. He went to rehab. He was straight for a year. Where the wheels fell off, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the fact that I got him clean for a year because of my movie, that made me feel wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that more people get to see it. It is on realhouse.com, REELHOUSE.com, and it could be rented. I think it's like $4.99.
Okay.
But I suggest everybody watch this film. Everybody watch it. It's one of those films that needs to be seen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for putting pieces of work like that out there, because it opens up the greater conversation that we need to have, that we need to take care of ourselves. We need to, make sure that we are learning how to cope with this fucking new way of life that's out there. So, Gary,
Shooting Heroin to being in such a major film like The Irishman?
Well, listen, I don't have a huge role in Long Stones. I look in the movie, thankfully, because I don't have a big role. And I did film it from the first 5 seconds I did. So, Marcus Scorsese is very, very good to me. And then his company and his casting director, Owen Lewis, they have had me up to just about everything Marty's done since Goodfellas. He's one of those wonderful people that he likes you, he likes you.
Yeah.
And, whatever kind of role I get, he just tries to get me in there. And I'm very appreciative of that. Some people would love to keep in it. Again, right now, the stuff that I'm doing, if I like the project, if I think it has merit, I'll do it. I have another film coming up called Pop Down. I did the openings in December. And I played the same character as Rudy Ice play Albert Anastasia. So everybody knows, if anybody knows anything about mob systems, Albert Anastasia wound up. He went dead on a barbershop floor. Again, it's really about the work. I just finished a film, Crabs in the Bucket, about a Philadelphia suburb. And I play the real estate mogul trying to gentrify the area. And one of my workers, who just happens to be Jeremy Piven, comes from that neighborhood that we're trying to gentrify. And his town people that knew him, they're giving him a hard time. They don't want it. I'm trying to bring a casino project in, and they don't want it. And at the end, he sides with his town folk. It's a comedy, and it was great. Zach McGowan's in it, Barry Manning. It's got a Pat Laurie. Bruce Dern is in it.
Oh, cool.
I don't know how long he's going to be around, but it was great to have him on set. Jack McGee, great cast, really great cast. I'm happy to have done that. So, here's another one that's totally polar opposite of anything Marvel did. So I'm starting to branch out. When Adam Sandler's the week up and play in there.
Oh, cool.
So, I have done other things. I need people to watch them.
Yeah.
You could find me on Facebook at Garry, GT Actor. And you can find me on Instagram at Garry_Pastore. That's Garry with 2 R's. And I told you, the script is on realnorth.com.
Awesome. So, Garry, I'm going to put a bunch of links in the episode, the comments to the episode of this conversation with you. Pushing everyone to everything that you're doing, you got coming up, especially Shooting Heroin, and where maybe they can see the film and how they can kind of maybe get involved with some of the stuff that's going on surrounding the opioid and heroin epidemic that's going on. And I really appreciate you, Garry, taking your time out of your busy schedule. You got a lot going on. And I really enjoyed, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to the film, because if I didn't, if you didn't, bring it to my attention, I don't know if I would have been privy to it. And it was a phenomenal film, and I loved your role in it. And it kind of, I've always had a fire for what I do, but it ignited an even brighter fire in what I do every day, working with these people, and how important that work is. So I from the bottom of my heart, and my coworkers, even, I told them I was interviewing you. They wanted me to extend a thanks to them too, because it was really impactful. It had the same effect on them, that now when we go out into that field and we touch lives, that we have a greater responsibility to, do what we can do, our part to kind of work with people and try to fight back against this thing. So I really appreciate.
I only want to bring a shining light to a dark place.
Yeah.
If I could do that, it's like you said, you're a social worker. I don't get anything financially rewarding out of it, but you do find redemption.
Yep.
And I kind of feel the same way. I made a lot of money shooting heroin. I took a cut in pay. I didn't get my normal fee. But it didn't matter to me because I thought that the message was worth the pay cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I was more interested in the helping factor than the financial factor.
And
I'm getting older now. I really want to start making a living doing this. You know, a good living. I don't have to do other jobs until my phone rings. So, you know, these are difficult choices that we make as an actor. But I never did this for money. I never became an actor to be rich and famous. And I think those are the most foolish reasons for all you aspiring actors out there to get into the business. The chance of you becoming rich and famous is slim to none.
yeah.
I think 1% of all the actors, I believe, make enough money to sustain themselves. So that's not a very big percentage.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. And I guess. And that distinguishes you from, you know, I tell when I talk to people at your caliber, Garry, I always attribute it to a craft just like any other artisan out there, and you can tell when people love what they do because it's reflective of the work that we get to receive as the viewer, and I really am looking forward to seeing this new or more of the other stuff that you do outside of that whole gangster role. I like I said before, I really enjoyed this side of Garry. It was a very kind-hearted, sincere, genuine, loving, warm side of what we normally see from you, and it wasn't a hard transition. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh well, Garry's trying to be this. You know, we're so used to Garry like being in that gangster role. Now that, you know, this is not coming off well. It was very well received. I know the audience enjoyed it and found your character very heartwarming. So again, I'm very interested to see all these new projects you have coming up. I'm definitely, when this interview is over, I'm going to make it a point today to watch Distressed, and I'm also going to see The Irishman today. So you being on the show today, and my best of luck, and I'm glad that you and I got to connect through this whole podcast and Shooting Heroin and all that, and I definitely will be in touch, and feel free to keep a normalized podcast as a home for yourself. So if you have any projects that are coming up and you want to just kind of get it out there, feel free to reach out to me, and
I'm looking forward to you putting this podcast on the book.
Absolutely. This has been the Unnormalized Podcast with Garry, Pastore, and Frankie A.
And everybody get unnormalized.